not connecting now. We're going to try this again. We're coming to you live from Salzburg. It's always an adventure in any foreign country to do Facebook Live. This is the beautiful city of kings and emperors, a beautiful city of Baroque palaces and cathedrals. We feel like we've stepped back into the 16th, 17th, and 18th century when the Austrian-Hungarian Empire of the Habsburgs ruled Europe. So here we stand here today. I want to share with you quickly a beautiful story. A story that I think you will enjoy. I call it the story of composers and pyramids. He was a superstar before the age of superstars, a boy genius, a child prodigy of unparalleled musical ability. By the time he was 5 years of age, he had already composed a harpsichord concerto. When he was 10 years old, he had composed and published several violin sonatas. When he was 10 years old, he was already had produced an opera. By the time he was 13, this boy wonder, this whiz kid, this overachiever, had already produced arias, oratorios, operettas, sonatas, and concertos, innumerable, more than we even know for sure that he had created. By the time he was 13 years old, this boy was the conductor of the greatest orchestra, symphony orchestra in all of Europe. He was prodigious in his output. In his brief life, he wrote 48 classical symphonies, some of the greatest symphonies the world has ever heard. He produced also 10 major operas. All of this in a short, brief lifetime. More than 100 masterpieces, compositions that still make the world marvel. He was a genius. His music was perfection. No one ever did it better than this child prodigy who lived such a brief, somewhat tragic and yet incredible life of producing great works. He should have produced great works with a name like his, Johannes, Christophilus, Wolfgangus, Theophilus, Amadeus, Mozart. With a name like that, you better amount to something in life, and he did. No one ever did it better. And yet there was a dark side to this boy genius. He was a rock star before the age of rock stars, and he lived the life of modern day rock stars. He lived big, extravagant, spending his huge fortune that he made off of his works on alcohol and drugs and wild parties and orgies. And by the time he was in his 30s, he had wasted his whole fortune. He was now on the edge of poverty, trying to produce as many works as he could to pay off his debts, until he worked himself into exhaustion by the age of 35. He lay in his flat, dying of pneumonia, exhausted, unable to get out of bed. His young wife was in a drug-induced coma, didn't even know her husband was sick, didn't even know he had finally died. It was days before she figured out. They took his body to a nearby cathedral where they had a funeral with just a handful of followers. By now, a snowstorm had moved in. The snow in Vienna was falling heavily. And so they took the body in the casket from the cathedral. And the snow now was so thick that the people couldn't go to the graveyard. But the grave diggers quickly dug a hole amongst other unmarked graves, and they put the coffin into the hole, buried it quickly, and then left to go to the warmth of their fireplaces. The snow continued to fall hour after hour, day after day, until it was several feet high over the grave that had not been marked. Weeks later, by the time the snow melted and they could find their way to that place of unmarked graves, the grave diggers could not remember where they had buried Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And to this day, No one knows where this great composer has been buried. All we know is somewhere in an unmarked grave, a 35-year-old body has long ago decomposed. Think about another person, a person who built a great grave to himself, perhaps the greatest shrine ever built to a dead person. It is the most visited graveyard on planet Earth. Every year, millions of people come to see this great tourist attraction. If you go to Cairo, outside of the sands of Cairo, you will see this grave rise high into the sky. It took years and years, decades to build, costing the lives of more than 100,000 slaves who labored all their life and died building the Great Pyramid. It is an architectural wonder. It is extravagant beyond any grave ever built for any man in history. In fact, it almost bankrupted the ancient nation of Egypt. It's been there for some 4,000 years, rising in crumbling grandeur above the sands of the desert. Long ago, centuries ago, grave robbers looted the grave, stole the body of this pharaoh, and robbed and looted his treasure. Do you remember the name of the pharaoh for whom the Great Pyramid was built as a final memorial? I think only a handful of historians, I'll bet hardly any of you remember his name. His name was Khufu. I bet you didn't remember his name, but I know this. If you come home after a hairy day of work, full of anxiety, your body tied up in knots, if you sit in your den, turn down your lights, and put a CD on of a Mozart Sonata, or turn your Google, or say to your Alexis, play a Mozart Sonata, and you lay back in your chair, that wonderful classical music will soothe away all of your cares, all of your struggles, and your anxiety. Your heart will just begin to unravel in liquid peace. Or if you want some excitement, get in your convertible if you have one. Put down the top. Get out on the highway. Let the wind rush through the air. Put a Mozart symphony on your stereo. Turn it up loud. Let the speakers just pulsate with that symphony, and it will be an exhilarating experience that will take you to the heights of passion. Or go to an opera house and sit there under the spellbinding music of Figaro, one of Mozart's greatest operas, and let him show you passion you've never felt before. But I can guarantee you this: if you go to your CD collection, or you go to your Apple store to buy a piece of music, or look at your MP3 player, I guarantee you this: you will not find a song written by a pharaoh by the name of Khufu. I guess what I'm trying to say today, as I stand here in the beautiful city of Salzburg, is it really doesn't matter what kind of a grave marker you have. It doesn't matter what kind of a memorial is left to your name. What matters is what you pour into the lives of other people, what you pour into the lives of your children, the symphony you write with your life, the acts of kindness you do for people. We have been walking through Prague, through Dresden, now in Salzburg. We were at Tabor this morning, a couple of other beautiful Czech cities in the mountains of Czechoslovakia. Tomorrow we go to one of the most beautiful cities on planet Earth, Vienna, then on to Budapest. And in every one of those places, in every square, we see the statues of people with their names inscribed on the sides of those statues. I don't know who any of them are. I know simply that the monument to them is now a place for pigeons to perch. And as I walk by them, I wonder, what did they leave behind? What kind of a legacy? The monuments that are built to you, the grave marker that will be built to you, for you, won't matter. What matters is, what did you leave behind in the lives of people, in the lives of your children, your grandchildren, your community, your church. I know this: the only thing that lasts is a symphony that you write. not a pyramid that you build. I love the story of Amadeus. What a tragic ending. And yet how he has blessed the world with his music, how he blesses us all today. And I hope that for you and for me, as we look to the future, after we're gone, we will remain a blessing. I want to just say this to you today. If God has blessed you, and I believe he has, then he has blessed you to be a blessing for other people. So remember the story of Symphonies and Pyramids, of Mozart and of Khufu, and give your life for that which matters. Well, we'll be with you in a couple of days from Vienna. I have a wonderful story entitled The Chambermaid's Choice. You won't want to miss it. It will show you how important you are as a person. Not only what you leave behind, but the fact that you're here today. I hope you'll come back again for another amazing story unwrapped. God bless. We'll see you later.